Lawrence Stroll has started to grow impatient when it comes to the performance of his team despite bringing upgrades to Imola, as they're probably the only squad on the grid that has gone backwards after introducing the package in Italy. Nonetheless, it now seems like the non-stop funds from Aston Martin will see a restriction, and if results are not seen in 2024, there will be reconstruction of the entire team, with Krack and Fallows the people who are at risk the most. But with the drivers lineup not being the best possible one for Aston Martin, is there any way that we could be seeing a change here too? And is Lawrence ready to finally get rid of his son despite the commitment that Lance has made a couple of days ago? It is safe to say that one of the biggest losers in 2024 is Aston Martin, and we don't have to be experts in order to see that. If we're to look at the points charts from 2023 and 2024 after 8 venues, we would notice that Aston Martin has lost the most points, with 110, losing their position to Mercedes and McLaren. And if this trend continues, they will be getting into a very unpleasant fight with Racing Bulls for P6 in the Constructors' Championship. This is not what the goal was 1 year ago when the Silverstone-based squad managed to win 6 podiums in the first 8 races of the season. However, the upgrades started to come and the team has effectively started to go backwards instead of pushing for more podiums and wins. After the first 8 venues in 2023, Aston Martin have only gathered 2 more podiums for the entirety of the season and are yet to be even close to a podium finish in 2024, which goes to point towards a very worrying trend. The team does not understand the car and the basis of it. This is an issue that has plagued the season of Mercedes as well, back in 2022 and 2023, and is something that could be effectively a call for a restructure of the entire squad. While many put their hopes in Fallows, who was the former head of aerodynamics in Red Bull and was appointed to be the technical director in Aston Martin, it seems like he only understood the ground effect era to a certain level. This is a prime example as to how bringing one of the high-profile members from a successful team does not make you a race winner candidate all of a sudden, and it's something that Lawrence Stroll has started to understand more and more in the past couple of weeks. Therefore, a meeting has been scheduled between Lawrence Stroll, Fallows and Krack in order to understand why the car performed utterly badly in Imola. The stats show it extremely well. Even with 4 sets of tyres, Aston Martin were nowhere to be found on the map, as many experts have put them in the exact place they were at the end of the 2022 season. It's a massive rollercoaster ride for the Silverstone-based squad, especially if they've invested so much in the development of the new facilities in their new home. And while many believe that the issue lies in the fact that Aston Martin and Mercedes still share the same wind tunnel, you could use McLaren as a proper example to prove the opposite. What is very interesting to point out is that while Aston Martin was very hopeful for the upgrades they brought in Imola, it proved that they were taking the car in the wrong direction. So instead of widening the operating window, they ended up narrowing it, which is the opposite of what you want to do under the current regulation era. The AMR24 became more unpredictable, unstable, and harder to drive, and that was heard multiple times on the radio, when Alonso said that the steering of the car became harder and that it's not a good overall experience to drive this type of machinery as we speak. The direction that Aston Martin is moving in is not positive, and the last human being that you'd want to be on Earth in this moment is either Fallows or Krack, as they have to explain to their boss, who has been tirelessly working on bringing in much valued finances to the team in order to bring it to the top of the team, including the partnership with Aramco as well as selling minor stakes to Arctos, just so that he sees the green cars fight for scrap points week in and week out. The qualifying gap between both of the drivers is now very close, with Stroll managing to outqualify Alonso in the last 3 events. However, it is the Spaniard who brought the majority of the points for Aston Martin in 2024, with the 2-time world champion having brought 75% of the team's total points and sitting in 4th, behind Tsunoda, Hülkenberg and Albon. On top of that, Aston Martin managed to score a very infamous feat. They were the only team that was slower in Monaco compared to last year, while the pole position has evolved for as much as 1 second. Of course, there's lots of factors here such as traffic and different strategies, but being slower than 2023 while spending $100 million more on developing your car is definitely a loss that the team needs to contemplate and see where they've gone wrong, which is something they seem to be utterly failing at this moment. Obviously, for a team that is trying to get out of the midfield and start fighting for podiums and enter the top 3, you need 2 solid performing drivers. And the bad news is that even though Alonso is definitely the type of driver that you'd put your trust in to take to the team in the right direction, now it seems like the car is the bigger issue. The two-time world champion has kind of lost the confidence, and throughout his statements, you could feel that the team is failing to understand what type of upgrades the car needs, which is primarily the fault of Dan Fallows and the crew that is working underneath him. To be the chief aerodynamicist on one team and to be the technical director on another are two different things. And now, after the latest developments around Fallows, it might very well mean that Lawrence Stroll is ready to line up a replacement for the experienced, high-profile member of the Silverstone-based squad. If there's one thing that Aston Martin doesn't lack, it is money, and they've proven this time after time, by illustrious offers to drivers like Verstappen and high-profile engineers like Adrian Newey. But after failing to secure either one of these Red Bull personnel, Aston Martin has switched their focus to the current technical director of Ferrari, Enrico Cardile. If the signing of Newey is to come to Ferrari, it would become very interesting to see whether he would be able to fit into the system and work with the current structure. So this might be a direct threat to every high-profile person in Ferrari due to the fact that they might have to get out their comfort zone because of the arrival of Adrian. Although this is a scenario that is yet to happen and might not even be good news for Ferrari, passing on the opportunity to sign the most experienced and one of the most successful engineers in the sport is definitely a no-brainer situation, similar to what happened with Hamilton's signature as well. Therefore, if Cardile wants to accept a new challenge, it wouldn't come without consequences for the current technical director of Aston Martin, Dan Fallows, who is looking more and more pressurized to deliver performance out of a car that his team is just not understanding in the first place. When talking about the AMR24, Fernando Alonso wasn't very optimistic, as he added, "We seem to go back to the midfield instead of looking at the front runners. But these things can change quickly. We saw with many other examples how quickly things can change. With a good upgrade to the car, you can move 5 or 6 positions. This is what we want to do with the next upgrade package, and we work hard in that direction." But working hard and seeing the results on the track are two different things. And if you're Lawrence Stroll, anything that comes out of the mouths of Alonso, Krack, Fallows, or even his own son Lance looks like an excuse. The man provided everything he could, built new facilities and branded the team in the best possible way, and the results are yet to arrive for the Silverstone-based squad. Be that as it may, huge changes are expected to come in Aston Martin. The only thing that would have to be answered is whether they'd be in a positive or a negative manner, because while Alonso was making fun of Alpine last year, it looks like his team is the one that's taking the same road this year, so you should be really careful with the words you choose. Obviously, a lot of hope will be put into the Honda collaboration due to the fact that the Japanese manufacturer will bring a lot of championship-winning experience to Aston Martin, a factor that could turn the tide and see them fight for race wins in a more regular manner. But in order for them to do that, they would definitely have to say as to who would drive the car, an ace that they could use in order to blackmail Lawrence Stroll into making a spot for one of Honda's drivers, in this case, Yuki Tsunoda. The Japanese driver is very unlikely to be promoted to Red Bull, and if Racing Bulls do not get podium competitive in the next couple of years, it's highly unlikely that this would be the perfect scenario for him to end his career. With all of this in mind, do you think that there will be a lot of changes coming to the personnel at Aston Martin? And more importantly, which of the current high-profile staff do you think would receive the boot from the merciless boss called Lawrence Stroll? Let us know in the comments below, and once you do that, make sure to click on the video that's appearing on your screen right now.